Hello and welcome to Interstellar Marines. This is a realistic difficulty on the main line, but we'd like to talk about what we're doing and tell you a little bit about the game. I'm Shannon Azul.
I'm Riot Raider, and holy crap.
Yeah. In this game, one of the important things of the stealth aspect is you can shoot out the lights. It's part of a core element of the game. As you can see,
Another one is definitely the audio. You listen to, as you can tell, you could hear an enemy moving around nearby. Um, we were able to hear it, and we're moving out. And typically, as you can see, there's a target right there. But they tend to be pretty predictable in the beginning. There's a few in the beginning you hear moving around on the roof and in rooms nearby. So it's really important to be paying attention to sounds and listening for when they start running.
yep. Something actually that's really an interesting factor in this game is the suppressor in this game is not like Call of Duty or whatever. It's not a completely silent shot. It is just, as it says, suppressed. All it is a quieter shot. So anything in the nearby that in your immediate facility will hear you, just like we had a couple of bots charge us from above. And they all heard those shots, and that's why they came after us.
An interesting thing in this game that's a little bit newer. I don't know exactly what update it came out in, but it's been in the last couple months because we hadn't played this for a while. But if you noticed when we shoot the enemies, which yes, they're kind of faceless drones right now. The game is still in development. But when you shoot the enemy, it puts a little crosshair right on where you hit. So that's actually a really new feature, and it tells you what kind of enemy you killed and whatnot, which I thought was really interesting because then you can kind of see where you're aiming and how you're shooting, and it can help you improve. And it also can tell you if you're actually hitting them.
Yeah, on that note, if you'll notice down next to our ammunition counter, there's a star. This is a training map, technically, so we have infinite ammo. But also right below that, you'll see that it's taser, and that's actually a part of the development build. They're saying that, yeah, these are what we're going to eventually put in the game, but they're quote-unquote taser rounds because they want this to be the beginning of the game, and as you progress, you will earn more penetrating rounds and etc. And a lot of that's already actually incorporated in the game. It just hasn't been released yet. Also, while we're already down there, you'll notice that Riot Raiders on semi-auto, and earlier I was on fully automatic. If you press the Alt key, you can easily switch between semi-automatic, burst fire, which fires a 3-round burst, and semi-automatic. Each are all tactically viable, and each have a certain place. Most of the time, for controlled fire, you're just going to do semi-auto or burst, but when you need to go in and clear a room, use full auto. And they really did a good job in this game because full auto is uncontrollable. Even if you're aiming down the sight, if you're aiming at the feet and you pull the trigger, half the belted clip is going to go above their head. I should say magazine, but
Yeah, it's amazing. But also you'll notice when you see Shannon Azul's again. There's multiple different types of weapon. He likes to often I notice him running around with the SMG, whereas I tend to stay with the battle rifle that I have out right now. Because he tends to like to be the first man in the door. I'll tend to stay back a little bit and cover from a little bit more of a distance. I like to use my semi-auto pretty much on everything, just because it gives me a little bit more control. There's only a few times you'll see me with full auto, and almost never with burst.
this is a really cool feature. We get charged right here because I shot out the light and a couple of bots heard me. But one of the things that you saw was that I was behind cover, and I was completely behind the cover, and I pressed the space bar, and it popped me up from behind the cover. There's a cover system that's not contextual in this game, and it's really, really fluid once you learn how to use it. It takes a little bit to learn, but it is really nice. Also, you'll notice, as he says, I am usually the point man in his case. Whenever I usually enter a room, I'll go in, I'll rush into the room, and I'll clear to the left. I did it in this case because I saw the lights and I let Riot take them out.
Yeah, I definitely had the better angle on those two. Um, One thing that I do like because we haven't mentioned it, but if I remember correctly, this game's supposed to be kind of like a tactical horror shooter. It's not a full-fledged horror game, but there is supposed to be that, sneak around in the dark, you don't really know what's around the corner type deal. You're kind of out on your own, so there is supposed to be that fear factor, I guess we could call it. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say a fear factor or just fear of the unknown is
Yeah,
good enough.
it kind of brings a little bit more to the realistic aspect of it, but with it to add to the environment and the shooting out lights, you can't shoot out the lights and then turn on like night vision goggles or something. You can't just all of a sudden negate the fact that there's lights because if you noticed, we have a flashlight. We really don't use it, but
Because it gives away our position.
the enemies have flashlights too. So it's kind of like, what if you're in a world trying to take on this? You always have this face the enemy, but you're better equipped than them. But in this, honestly, you're equally matched with the enemy. Like they're equipped just as good as you are. They just happen to be in a defensive position rather than an offensive like you are. So we suppress, they don't, but they use their flashlights. We try not to. But then, as you saw earlier, coming into this room when the lights were off, we had very little to go on that there were enemies in here. And now we're going very cautious because we can hear them moving around, and we're not sure where they are.
Yep, and that all comes back down to it. I actually think I go down here at one point, but you know, going down in this game, yes, you can be revived. Yeah, it's got that kind of co-op-y feel, but it takes a long time to revive your teammates, and it is more worth it for everybody to stay alive in the first place and to move slowly than it is to have, a four-man team and have two guys rush in and die and then have the next two guys clean up. It's just not worth it. It's more
These
worth
are
it to
all
keep everybody
definitely
alive.
lessons we've learned from experience in this
Yeah,
game.
which is actually one of the best points about this game. Is right now in its development, it is supposed to be a training simulation for these interstellar marines. It is supposed to be training them for the unknown and for advancing to survive.
And I know it kind of looks like I'm just sitting there doing nothing, but I was watching the door. I was looking around, trying to cover Shannon Azul as he poked his head out, tried to get some situational awareness.
Yep, and
We
just
um we weren't recording it, but we actually did have comms going, and we were communicating actually very well during this match. Unfortunately, we didn't record it, but I think
on
it
on
was some
top of that,
very
I like this commentary over it better because we can talk about a lot of the things that are really cool in this game. And if you got, I'd like to do a live recording of our comms later, but a lot of times it's just, is this corner clear? Is that clear? Moving up, etc.
yes. Yeah, it's very simple. We tend to keep our communications in, especially in this game, very very simple. Um,
The faster you can
but
communicate in this game, just the better. You know.
it truly is exciting being able to actually just share on a whole this game and everything we love about it because we do play games. We don't always talk about the game itself because we're caught up in actually playing the game and recording us playing the game. But talking about them because we do get excited about these games. We like reading about them. We like finding out about them. We like seeing the new updates and sharing them with people. That's why we do all of this.
Exactly. Another note while we're kind of just sitting here waiting. By the way, Right Raider is staring outside the door because we heard them like they were right in front of us. To us, this sounds like they're right there, and we just did not know what was going on. So might as well sit there and be ready. Um, but while he's sitting here on the HUD, you'll notice on the right side of the HUD there's a 100, and actually that is your health. There is numeric health. Yes, it regenerates, but a one shot to the chest will bring you down to 45 HP. The second shot puts you down. So really, yeah, you have health, and yes, it regenerates, but no, you don't have a whole heap of extra health to hide behind. You're not a
and
bullet
you
sponge.
And you may notice also underneath that 100, there's an SO2 and a percent. And you notice when I moved, it went up to like, when I like moved a little distance, it fluctuates. See, it just jumped up to like 1%. That's actually your
Right.
stamina. It's reading your oxygen level. So if I stood up all the way, it would fill up faster. If um if I were to sprint, it would fill up real quick and it actually affects you. You'll start breathing harder, which is making noise, which makes you easier to spot, and the enemies will actually come at you. You won't be able to jump.
Right.
You won't be able to move very quickly. Your vision gets distorted slightly.
And also, the aim point will go everywhere. You just will not be able to keep your sight on target. It jumps all over the place when you're not breathing right.
So the developers did just an excellent job in putting that in. In this map, because we're doing an elimination, we're going around just eliminating all these robots. We don't really sprint around a lot. There are other game modes where we end up sprinting because we get outnumbered and we have to get to cover. Um,
Yeah, and this is one of the ones that highlights this more stealth action of the game. And as you'll just see, I lifted up my helmet, and that was just to get a better view because there was a lot of glare. One of the coolest things about this game for an indie game is that the HUD is actually a physical thing. Like your visor is actually physical, and your entire HUD is actually projected. Like for instance, a modern day aircraft HUD is projected. That's actually being drawn onto the screen. It's not a static overlay, like for instance Call of Duty does. It's actually a really
that's
cool
that's
concept.
why you may notice when he moves in a certain way, sometimes it will jiggle a little bit. It's like his character actually jiggled, so it's an incredible attention to detail that the and amount of care that the developers took to put it in. And as you can see, like we can see there's an enemy there. We don't have a shot because we can't see his flashlight, but we see him shining. And then we spotted by that little telltale um, pair of glowing white dots. That's kind of how we've been identifying because, especially as you play, and they are very intelligent enemies. They actually do figure out that you're taking out their buddies, and they will start playing either more aggressively, depending on how they're equipped, or they'll play a lot more cautiously, and they'll wait for you to walk into an ambush. I can't tell you how many times we've come upstairs or gone downstairs or gone in a room and just been swarmed because they were just in there waiting.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the coolest things that I love about this game, is the AI are not dumb. Like, most games there's AI, whatever they know to take cover, etc. No, these AI are extremely smart. They know how to set up ambushes. They know how to actually go in and clear a room. One of the things that scared me the most was I walked into a room, I shot down a robot, and I backed out of the room. And I could still see the robot. The robot goes into the room, looks entirely around the room, doesn't see anybody, but instead of going back to patrol, he scouted out the area, which that blew my mind when I first encountered that. No other AI goes and actually looks around the area. They all say, "Oh, okay, well, I investigated this area, I'm done." You know.
And something I remember seeing one time in one of the other levels is there was a room that we went into, and there was catwalks across the way, and it was very dark. We couldn't see, and we were playing with I think it was one other friend at the time. It might have been two, so we might have had four in the room. But I remember our friend went in the door, and he was pretty much immediately ambushed, and I came in a different door trying to get an angle, and they took me out. But the last thing I saw was they started fanning out on this catwalk for whoever came in the door next, which you don't see too often in AI in the game. Is them actually trying to prep and take care of people that might like anticipating further encounters. Typically, they knock you down and they're like, "All right, the problem solved," which I
Yeah,
thought was just an incredible AI.
and you know, we are saying a lot of these fantastic words because it is. They've done a really, really good job. And their problem thus far has just been the ability to put out content. Because if they put out, I actually have talked to the developers about this, if they put out too much content, by the way, nice shot, Raider, on this long shot here.
Thank you, thank you.
And if you notice, ZPS LI LOL, that is actually one of the developer names. There's a percent chance when you kill bots that one of the developer names will pop up. It's just a cool tidbit. But I actually talked to developers about this, and they really want to put out a lot more of the content that they've got. But if they release everything in early access, and you have access to everything, including the story that's already been partially made, there isn't going to be anything for the full release of the game. Early access is all for testing, the game and everything like that. So if they just released a full game to you or whatever they've got with the game, defeats the purpose of early access. Also, recently they've run into a wall and they have run out of money. They are looking for a publisher, which I commend them for because originally they didn't want to do this, but they've come so far, and even with a publisher, I would be really happy to see the game progress because they've done so well on it that I hope they can continue to do well.
I just want to point out again with the when Shannon Azul mentioned that the physical HUD, the visor. I don't know if you noticed, but when the lightning flashes, there's just an incredible amount of glare. So it's one of those game elements with the environment because you can see just how dark this game gets with no lights. Where it, even though you would lose your ammo count and your health and all of this beautiful heads-up display, sometimes it might be prudent to pull your visor up. And as you can see, we now have both of our screens showing just because we're searching for them, and you kind of see it's a series of very fast action. This was actually a little bit of a for lack of a better term, a butt pucker moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I poked my head around that corner expecting to see maybe one, maybe two, but there was a group of four of them. And while I engaged the four, one came from the left, one came from the right, one or two came from behind, a further one came from behind the group we took out, and we ended up with a lot more enemies in the immediate vicinity than we had initially seen, and we just had to handle it.
And we just got lucky. Well, all it was is in this is we got lucky.
Yeah.
You know, in that situation, we got lucky that we got the first shots off and got most of them down before they could turn on us and pull the trigger.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the end here, guys. It's going to wrap up here shortly. We thank you guys for watching, and we hope you've enjoyed. If this looks interesting to you, Interstellar Marines is on Steam, so have fun. Bye, guys.
Like and subscribe for more.
Oh man, that's
I don't think that fit.
it did not.